All right, I got my gas. Well, it's unfortunate, but less stress, more prepared. Now I can handle any delays on the highway and any delays on the road. So I'm very happy about that. We're talking about situational awareness and how important situational awareness is. I was just given a complimentary coffee, and I wasn't looking for a handout, but I guess because I didn't even realize that I still had my epaulets on, and I didn't even realize that I had my epaulets on, and I don't think that's the reason he gave me the free coffee. I was at a 7-Eleven, but I was in there, and I was using one of their automated machines and made a latte, just a coffee with milk. And as I did that, when I'm putting the lid on it, I spilled it. I spilled some. Now, remember in our last video, I talked to you about character, and I told you guys that in my viewpoint, you are the things you do when no one's watching. You know, if you go to the bathroom in a public place and you don't raise the toilet seat and you pee on it and you pee on the seat, haha, nobody saw you. Nobody's seeing you, but you know who you are. You know what you've done. You are what you do when no one is looking. So I made my coffee and I spilled some. Now, I talked to you guys earlier about conducting yourself like a professional. No matter where you are, it is who you are at all times. So I spilled some coffee, and nobody was watching me. No, maybe there was a camera, they could see me later, but there's no real repercussions. It's just a little bit of spilled coffee, right? And there's a young man sitting behind the counter, and he's playing video games on his phone, and the lady in charge of the place went and took a bathroom break herself. But when I spilled that coffee, like, I hold myself to a higher standard. I know that I did that, and that's not cool because it was nice and clean when I got there. So I grabbed the napkins, I got a couple of napkins, and I made sure it was nice and clean, the same way it was when I went to get my coffee. And I wasn't expecting anything from that. I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it because that's the way I want to come across. That's the person I want to be at all times. Well, it seems that maybe it was likely that young man behind the counter wasn't just playing on his phone. He was watching me out of the corner of his eye. So when I handed him my credit card to pay for the coffee, he said, "No, it's okay. It's complimentary. It's on us today." And I thought that was very nice. So whether it was because of the shirt and these epaulets, or because of something that I did without expecting anything in return, there's always someone watching, everybody. There's always someone watching. So we're talking about situational awareness, and we're talking about this guy grinding out here asking for money. Let me give him $1. It's $1. Hey man, I hope this helps you.
Thank you, sir. God bless you.
You're welcome. Take care. Poor guy. It's got to be, let's see, it's 84 degrees out there. He's holding a little sign saying he's hungry. He's probably BSing me. Who cares? It's $1. Just give him $1. Just give it to him. Doesn't matter. I hope it helps him. Maybe he can buy a Coke with it, or a bottle of water. Quench his thirst. So, situationally aware of your surroundings. Let's see, where were we going with that? Yeah, and staying ahead of the aircraft. So by being situationally aware, you're able to stay ahead of the airplane and avoid a circumstance. So you've looked at weather, you looked at delays with air traffic control, effects on airspace in your upcoming route, your fuel status, being aware of how much gas you have on the aircraft, how much gas you're going to need when you arrive at your destination. Different companies have different procedures. I'm not going to recite the usual stuff. Arrive at your destination, fly thereafter for another 45 minutes, blah, 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 all of this stuff. I don't want to give you any wrong technical information. You can look all that up on Google if you like. Be aware of the fuel status. The other day, we flew to a destination that had short runways, and it was windy as could be. I mean, it was windy. It was something like 28 gusting to 39. It was very windy, and it was a 50-degree quartering headwind. So it was a little bit of a crosswind in there also. And we managed to land. My ATR experience from flying at American Eagle in the Caribbean, that kicked in, and crosswind landings are easy for me. Not easy, but they're not an impossibility for me. For some guys and gals that have not had that kind of experience in regional planes, if you came from a small fighter jet and now you're in a big airliner, yeah, there's a little bit of a transition there. We landed, and 2 airplanes after us went missed approach. They just couldn't get in. It was really bad. Well, you only get 1 shot. If you're lucky, 2 shots at it, and if you don't make it, you have to go to your alternate, and you better have enough fuel to get to your alternate and hope that the weather there is good too. So being aware of your fuel status is important. Situationally aware, the status of the airplane. You know what I mean? What if the status of the airplane doesn't allow you to fly any higher than 25,000 feet, for example? In the 737, if you have a certain setup with the bleed system, you cannot be dispatched above 25,000 feet. If there are other limitations. If you only have electrical power, or if you have electrical and air, there are different altitudes that you're limited to flying in the 737. So being aware of the aircraft status. Sorry, I'm paying attention to the road here. I'm joining the highway. Being aware of the aircraft status will help you make these decisions. If you're limited to fly below 25,000 feet, you're going to get a lot more gas than if you're flying at 39,000 feet. If it's going to be turbulent, if you have turbulent air, if you have turbulence happening at the higher altitudes and it forces you to come down, our company policies dictate that if we have an altitude change of more than 4,000 feet, we need to coordinate that with our dispatch department to recalculate the fuel requirements, because it is significant. 4,000 foot altitude change could be a significant amount and could impact you being legal upon arrival. So if you have an alternate set up, you might have to choose a different alternate because of your reduced fuel on board. So very important topics, all part of that situational awareness and staying ahead of the airplane. Knowing the capabilities of the airplane is is part of your responsibilities. So knowing the airplane, knowing the status of the airplane, will allow you to stay ahead of it. And following company procedures to do things at certain points is very important for safety. Briefing your approaches and the arrivals. Don't wait till you're on the descent to start briefing your approaches. Start talking about it 200-300 miles out. Get that out of the way. Make sure you get your descent checklist before top of descent, before you're going to begin descending. That means brief the arrival, brief the approach, have a shared mental model with your coworker, with your other pilot. Make sure that you guys are both on the same page. You both have all your frequencies tuned in. You already know what the anticipated weather at your destination is going to be. You've already talked about the approach. As a captain, the most challenging part of being a captain is driving the aircraft on the ground. The tiller. The captain has the tiller. So maneuvering the aircraft on the ground is difficult because I am calling for checklists, so I'm checking things as I'm driving. And especially for a new captain, looking at the taxiway signs, you have to pay attention because sometimes you can't see them as well as at night as you could in the daytime, and sometimes the visibility is reduced. There are many factors that can impact you. So what I typically do, we're allowed to taxi around pretty fast. I'm not at liberty to discuss our flight operations manual, but we've been given the liberty to taxi fairly fast on straightaways. But you're expected to exercise caution. And excuse me. You're expected to exercise caution. If you have reduced visibility, or if you have snow or ice or rain on the ground, well, it's obvious that you should slow down. It's obvious that you should exercise caution and slow down for those turns. Or slow down if the visibility is reduced so that you can do what you're supposed to do. You can recite those checklists, you can respond rather to those checklists, and also pay attention to the ground. Co-pilots, be aware, you're not driving. So rambling off a checklist, no. Read it off at a decent pace. Give the guy next to you an opportunity to respond because he's working over there. He's driving that airplane, and all you're doing is holding a checklist. So on the ground, I think, this is one of the reasons why captains make more money than the first officer, because you're doing a little bit more work. That is just work that the co-pilot cannot do. So the captain gets paid a little more. The captain is also the final authority on decision making on the aircraft. So the co-pilot has the opportunity to discuss that with the captain. The co-pilot can make recommendations. The co-pilot could point out things that they're supposed to be doing. The co-pilot should be paying attention to the taxiing also. You know how hard it is to be given a clearance. Airline such and such, taxi straight ahead on Golf, make a right on Alpha, cross runways 24 and 33, and hold short of Bravo. At the same time, you're taxiing, it's reduced visibility, and the co-pilot's like, are you ready for the before takeoff checklist? Okay, now you got to remember all that, taxi, and respond to the checklist also. Think about that for a second. So, it's better if, especially with a complicated instruction or clearance like that, if the co-pilot reads back the instruction and stays with the captain paying attention, the checklist can wait. There'll be time for that. Just taxi the aircraft, and the co-pilot write down the instructions, and as you're approaching each intersection, remind the captain, left on Golf, or right or left on Alpha, whatever the instruction was. Okay, we need to hold short of Charlie. Give the guy a heads up. You're in this together. Don't just leave the responsibilities on him. You see what I mean? Let's see. This thing took me in a different direction than I wanted. Let's see what else. Okay, how about adaptability? Adaptability. Maybe this should be a separate topic. Adaptability is something that's very important for both a captain and for a co-pilot. A co-pilot must be a chameleon at the airline industry. You're going to fly with many different personalities. And these different personalities, it's difficult sometimes because we are a diverse group in the airlines. Men, women, and young, old, from different parts of the world, different experiences, different levels of experience. I've flown with some guys recently that are 23 years old in the right seat of an airliner. I'm so happy for them. That's awesome. But those guys are going to be captains before they're, in the next couple of years, before they're 30 years old, 28 or younger. And they're going to be flying with co-pilots that are 60 years old or in their 50s. So the co-pilot has to know their audience. The captain sets the tone for the flight. The captain sets the tone, by arriving early, by briefing, by leading by example. You know what I mean? The co-pilot, who you're working with just by the way the guy's walking down the jet bridge. The guy's walking down the jet bridge, and the first thing the guy does when he sees you, he goes up to you and says, "Hey, how you doing? My name is Joe. How's it going?" Right off the bat, you already have an opinion of that guy. As opposed to a guy that just comes in, drops his bag on the side, and doesn't greet you and shake your hand and look at you in the eye. It's a different thing. I always make sure that I introduce myself. Hey, how you doing? I'm Joe. We're going to be working together. Are you doing this 2-day or 3-day? How long do we fly together? Because sometimes, we may only fly one flight, maybe 2, maybe 2 days, maybe 3 days out of 4. It all depends. It varies. Sometimes we switch frequently. And I like to know how long the guy I'm going to be working with, or gal, we're going to be together, so we can plan ahead. Maybe we can talk about, at some point we can talk about if we're going to get together and have dinner, or if we're on a layover, if they want to get together and do something interesting together, if we're going to get together with the crew, things like that. So a brief introduction and a hello is good. There's always those break the ice questions. So, where are you based? You married? You have any kids? Pets? What kind of things you like to do? These are basic questions. You just ask them. They're not empty gestures for me. I'm truly interested in knowing, because I like to know the person I'm working with. It gives me a good idea. There's a big difference between a guy who's a single young man with no children. He's never been married. He still lives at home with his parents, compared to a guy who is, 45 years old, has 3 kids, has a mortgage, commutes, and drives, an hour to the airport. And he's been in the airline industry for 20 years. Different mindsets, Anyways, let's see, adaptability. Let's see. Staying calm and flexible when plans change. Flights are delayed, weather shifts, being able to adjust quickly during unexpected or stressful situations. Okay, I wonder what they're talking about there. Okay. How about, let's see, being able to adapt quickly to stressful situations. What if in the middle of the day, as it happened to us last week, we were going to Chicago, I believe, and that's where I experienced the 7-hour delay. It was a Jacksonville delay, and then there was also those heavy winds up in Chicago. And after the 7 hours of sitting at the airport, because I actually arrived, that's actually my fault, because my check-in wasn't until 5, but I was in the area and I didn't feel like driving home 30 minutes and then driving back another 30 minutes and dealing with traffic. So I figured, you know what, I'll just hang out in the airport. So I actually got there a few hours early. Yep, that was me. A couple of hours early. I figured I'd get some dinner, I'd catch up on some reading and emails, and I did all that. But then the flight was delayed. So really the flight wasn't delayed 7 hours. I was at the airport for 7 hours, but I was comfortable. We have a massage chair, so I took a good 30-minute massage. I felt really good. I watched the news. I checked my emails. I took my shoes off on the lazy boys in the crew lounge. And but anyways, we got in the airplane, and after a 2-hour delay, and then after we pushed back from the gate, they closed all departures to the north. And we actually have a thing that's public information. It's a passenger's bill of rights, and an aircraft needs to be back at the gate. After pushing back, if you don't take off, you have to be back within 3 hours. There's different things you have to do during that 3 hours. Like, you have to provide soft drinks to the passengers. You have to provide a snack after an hour. And then, like, after 2 hours, you have to notify ATC that you need to go back to the gate, because sometimes it could take an hour to get you back to the gate, depending on how many airplanes are on the taxiways. Imagine that. So you need to notify them so they can start working you into the system to bring you back. If you don't make it back within 3 hours, there is a $3 million fine for the company. Imagine that, $3 million. So there are some procedures that we must follow. I had no idea that it was going to take this long. So after about an hour, started really paying attention. It's like, okay, we need to do a few things. Like, this whole time it was like, can you be ready in 10 minutes? Sure, we'll be ready in 10 minutes. So we wouldn't do anything. We're ready to go. We make sure that we have the right fuel for the flight, and in contact with our dispatcher. We worked the entire time. And then the 10 minutes will come up and say, oh, sorry, we have an update in 40 minutes. What? Okay. So another 40 minutes. Now it's an hour and 40 minutes, right? You're at the 10 minutes to the 2-hour mark, where you almost have to go back. So the guys, they'll come back and say, hey, can you be ready in 15 minutes? So now you're at the 2-hour and 5-minute mark, where you're supposed to be going back to the gate, but they're saying, we're going to try to get you off the ground in the next 10 minutes. And they keep stringing you along. And then just the same thing kept happening as we were getting ready for our takeoff. Then we had an even bigger problem, because the fuel had changed so much, we had to redo our numbers, and then our system that sends the data with the takeoff numbers, it was having an issue, and it wasn't giving us back that information. So we couldn't take off. And now we had to, so much time had passed that we actually had to return to the gate. Now, it didn't take us 3 hours, but it took a while, and we weren't that far from the ramp. So when we got back to the gate, it had been 2 hours and 50 minutes sitting on the ground burning gas. Okay? And consequently, the flight was canceled. But our system is such that we were still legal. We technically had only been on duty a few hours, and we're good for about 12 hours. So our scheduling department reassigned us to a different flight. So they send us to Indianapolis. So we gassed up, we did new paperwork, we got people on the plane. We got to the plane and we got people loaded up, and we left to go to Indianapolis. I was supposed to spend the night in Indianapolis. Okay? Well, when we landed in Indianapolis, the company had decided that they wanted us to deadhead back to Orlando, our base. Deadhead means you sit in the back as a passenger. You're not working. So I watched the movie. I watched Gladiator 2. It was a really good flick, by the way. And so you get paid for riding in the back. Okay? And we call it dozing for dollars. Yep. But I was pretty tired. I actually would have preferred to stay in Indianapolis because I had a trip planned, and I was going to go from there meet my family out in Denver and Montrose for a little hiking trip. Anyways, the company's idea was that we deadhead back to Orlando, and that's what we did. So you see, you have to. The point to this is to remain flexible, because things happen. And you need to adapt. You can't be getting upset about things. This is the nature of the operation. Okay, adaptability. You stay calm and flexible when plans change, flights are delayed, or the weather shifts, and being able to adjust quickly during unexpected or stressful situations. So this has actually been a little bit of a stressful drive with this talk, because I didn't realize this time of the day has it has a lot of traffic. My goodness, a lot of traffic, a lot of people, causing my attention to shift. So sorry about that, but I hope that the content was good. I hope that these are good topics of discussion. I'm not an authority in anything. I'm just a pilot like the rest of you, but I'm a little bit older and I have a little bit of life experience in me. 38 years in the airline industry gives me a broader perspective on what things are like out here. So I'm just sharing this with my viewers. I hope that you find value to it. If you like what I'm saying, hit subscribe. I'm trying to build up a viewership, and I'm going to improve my content as I go along. Remember, I've only been doing this for about a week or two, so you'll be able to see me as I improve. And I do like talking on the way to work, but maybe I'm going to start doing some recording at home in the comfort of a desk, where I could have notes, and I could reference things and give you more details, because right now the stuff I'm giving you is just off the cuff. This is just off the top of my head. I know that I could give you a much better format if I had an outline, if I had bullet points of things to hit on, but I'm just trying to make it a conversation. Well, it's not a conversation because you're just basically listening to me, right? But I'm trying to make it where, it's not a scripted thing. It's just talking. It's just pilots talking. I'm a pilot just like you, and hopefully I'm not giving you any wrong information. That's why I'm refraining from citing anything technical, anything specific. I do have that information in my head, but I make mistakes, and I don't want to be responsible for giving you wrong information. So I hope you like what I've been discussing. Please subscribe to my channel, hit like, let me know what you think. Put some comments in the comments section. In the coming days, I would like to add more content, and I would love your ideas. I would love to know what kind of things you guys would like to know about. I'd like to do a series on overnight, on the overnights with the cruise and the hotels we stay. I'd like to do a little review of the different places that we stay regularly, different cities. Maybe that's something that will interest you. I've already posted a few videos of at least one overnight in Fort Lauderdale, which has gotten a pretty good following. That was a good time. That's not a usual thing. I don't usually go out and drink and party, but I did that night. So please check it out. God bless. Take care.